to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in. Wednesday, November 13th. The Fantasy Footballers, Jason Moore, Mike Wright, Andy Holloway. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for subscribing to the podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of the Foot Clan. We appreciate you all. Welcome to week 11 as we venture into the near playoff territory.
It's a big week. It's a big show because the playoff primer we are talking about. It's big week. It's big week. Yeah, I mean, this is I think every year this is a show that helps take people from playing fantasy football heading towards the playoffs and turns them into championship winners.
I think one of the most difficult things for fantasy players, and I mean, this is just the competitive nature, is you can have really, really good performances year after year in the regular season, feel like you've dominated, feel like you made all the right moves, and you can fall short in the playoffs. I mean, it is a head-to-head matchup. We've all had the weeks where our players don't perform, and we get surprised, and a lot of the time, I think why people take a break from fantasy football is the kind of irrationality that you don't win it on paper. I mean, you can put the best team together and then just lose.
Our league of record, we have fixed things through the governing association of our league of record. And the rules and bylaws.
Very large association, over 1,000 members.
Prestigious.
But several years ago, I think we got to a place, because it's a keeper league, where you ended up every year with these like super teams, like people who would sell out early the year prior, accumulate all the first-round picks, get just this crazy team that you just feel like can't
on
lose.
paper,
and we had that.
Just give them the trophy.
We had that for a long time. 8-9 years, and I think only one time did the clear and utter super team actually win, because one bad week in the playoffs, you're out. The main thing right now is you've got to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, if you catch Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Lamar Jackson on the other side in week one of the playoffs, you could have a beautiful team on the other side, and you probably aren't going to win. So I don't say all this to make you feel hopeless. I say this because people write us and say, man, I can't get over the hump. I finished second 3 times. The best thing that you can do, the only thing that you can do, is give yourself the best odds to have success in the playoffs, which means doing more than just building that on-paper team halfway through the year or at the trade deadline, right? At the trade deadline is the time you can go and get those assets that look great on paper, but maybe you're not setting yourself up for success in the playoff schedule. And last year, it was Dak, it was Njoku. Dak was a waiver wire guy.
Mm-hmm.
Njoku was
I'm sure through the beginning of the year he was a waiver wire guy as well. He was not good the first half of last year.
Well, last year it was Joe Flacco over those playoff weeks. A couple years ago it was rookie who had done nothing for the Detroit Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, you find guys who are peaking at the right time, guys who have a perfect aligned schedule, or as perfect as you can get, and it improves your probability.
So that means what you got to do right now, focus on making the playoffs, because you just got to get. I promise you can't win the championship if you don't get to the playoffs. That's one of our.
We've had nobody in our league do that.
It's never happened once. And then once you're there, I'd focus on rabbit's feet.
Oh,
4-leaf clovers.
Okay.
Voodoo dolls, if you want to go the other direction,
okay,
it's just gonna it's gonna take some magic in the playoffs.
But for the Mark of the Beast guy, I'm not surprised.
Are you voodoo dolling your manager?
The opponent, the manager, not the players.
Okay,
yeah,
no, just making
you're
sure.
pro player.
I'm pro player.
Yeah, I mean,
on my team.
Inversely to the good schedule is also just knowing that if you have a superstar that has a really rough playoff schedule, you might be peaked, right? Like, you're probably going to keep riding them, but maybe you can swap them at the trade deadline for a player with a better schedule. We can talk about that. That is what today is all about, the playoff primer. You can go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. That's where all the weekly rankings, the start-sit tool. If you want any premium content from the jointhefoot.com community, which includes the ultimate dashboard, the custom waiver wire, the spot starts, the strength to schedule tool, the stream finder, all of the resources, many of which we use to prepare today's show, available to you as a member at jointhefoot.com. A reminder, there's a new Dynasty podcast out today. Betts, Borg, and Mike did the Dynasty Situation Room.
We did. We broke down. We sent the call out and let people say, here's where I am. Like, I am a contending team. Like, should I go after this player or I'm in a rebuild? You know, what am I doing? Just a lot of advice for all sorts of teams out there.
Yep. So let's jump into Hungry for More.
Welcome to Hungry for More, presented by Uber Eats.
All right, Jason, why don't you kick us off for this week's Hungry for More?
Sure. Look, I mean, if you've been holding on to him or if you picked him up late, for the most part, all season we've been hungry for even just a little TJ Hockenson. Finally got back, got healthy, is on the field, is active, and is immediately the number 2 target that the Minnesota Vikings so desperately have needed. The first week back, limited snaps, still a pretty decent involvement in the passing game, but now this last week, 9 targets, 8 for 72, still on just 46% of the snaps. I mean, this is a need for this team. Behind Justin Jefferson, they have needed someone to step up. He was targeted on 32% of his routes this last week. Only Travis Kelce had more first read targets in week 10 at the tight end position. And so I'm hungry for more of TJ Hockenson because I don't think that people remember how good he was last year as a Viking and how important he was, how impactful. And I'm going to leave it for the end of the show. But the playoff primer edition, you want to talk about a guy who's got a dynamite schedule in the playoffs, is TJ Hockenson. So I'm hungry for more of him this week and the rest of the season, but especially I think he's going to be one of those players that can help take people to championships.
Yeah, I mean, Hockenson looked great this past week. He looked great. He looked right back into the flow of what made him great. And
he did look towards the end of the game darn tired, man. I felt bad. I'm like, dude, you got to give this guy a break. He was, I mean, on his 9th target or 8th target or wherever it was, I saw him lay on the ground for at least a half second before getting up, not because of injury. It was just like, oh, man, this game is brutal.
Mike, who do you have? And by the way, you did point out Jason might be trying to run up the value on Hockenson for the trade deadline in our league of record.
What? Dude, I have Hockenson in the league of record? While that is true, and he is incredibly valuable for the trade deadline this week, and he is, I want to remind you, he was the tight end 2 and the tight end 4 the last 2 years, and now is going to be probably the tight end 2 or 3 rest of the way.
Wow.
Never. But that's happenstance.
You didn't even know that he was on your team.
That's coincidence.
Okay.
I mean, genuinely, though, I don't want the Foot Clan out there to think that this is
No, I'm totally in on this.
It's both. I love to throw a bit on top, but this is true. Like, Hockenson should be a really important difference maker down the stretch. Much more different than the Jake Fergusons and the Hunter Henrys and even Evan Ingram, who's now potentially lost his quarterback. I think Hockenson is the only guy that's in that has not been a top-tier guy who can now become a top-tier guy rest of the way and join Trey McBride and join some of these high-end, Kittle. I genuinely believe that's where Hockenson lives.
I was very happy to see the 9 targets. Like the hope and everything for Hockenson was, we know when he will be back, but will he go back into a prominent role? Like it was a devastating knee injury. So to have him be back, I mean, he's only playing about half the snaps right now. So I'm in on that. The one I want to say I'm hungry for more for, because this player has really only received nothing but slander, not from just this show, but
How did speak for yourself?
What?
You've enjoyed a slanderous
Yeah.
moment or two.
Who hasn't-
It's been very fun.
Who
And
hasn't gotten in on taking a cheap shot of low blow at Quentin Johnston, wide receiver of the Los
Quentin
Angeles?
Dropston,
Yes.
in the past, that's been fun.
The rookie year was as close to a surefire bust first-round wide receiver that we have seen in a very long time, and yet things have actually gotten better for him. He's scored in 2 straight games. In points per game, he's actually right there with Ladd McConkey. Quentin's at 10.6, McConkey is at 10.5, and this team has really turned things around. In weeks 1 through 4, they're averaging about 145 passing yards per game. Weeks 6 through 10, we're up to 262 yards per game, and the upcoming schedule for the Chargers for wide receivers, it's the third easiest for wide receivers, and they have high totals over the next 5 weeks. Week 14 is the only bad matchup here for the Chargers pass catchers. They take on the Chiefs in that time, but Bengals, Baltimore, Falcons, Tampa Bay, these are great matchups for him, and the team is surging at the right time. I think that he is a really interesting guy who could just maybe he's a flex play for the rest of the season.
How do you see?
I've always loved him.
Yeah.
That is sarcasm, but it's nice to see. Like, we've reached the point where we're not wondering if the ball's going to be caught. Really, I mean, it is a
man. The training camp videos of just him dropping passes combined with last year was like, this is hilarious.
We didn't see enough of him last year, and
No,
it's amazing.
We saw enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say he was on the field
We
so much.
We saw enough,
Well,
and it
yeah,
was
that
bad.
part is true. But if you remember before the season, if you went back and watched the film, there were a lot of plays that looked promising from an after the catch standpoint, from the way he was running routes. It was just his drops were so egregious and headline making. You just wonder what the confidence building ability of Harbaugh has been, because he is
it's a very good point.
A player's coach, but he's detail oriented too.
If you haven't seen the video that the Chargers put out on X, Jim Harbaugh building up Herbert and talking to her, it is a fun time. I'm telling you, put that on your to-do list. Just look up that video. I couldn't watch this video without smiling. He's talking to Herbert. They're
so
They're playing
enthusiastic.
games with the opponent. I mean, he's apparently wanting to call him Beast. I'm calling him Beast now. I'm calling Harbaugh Beast, or I'm calling Herbert. Oh yeah, he's a beast. You haven't seen this video, Mike?
No, I didn't watch.
Dude, you
yet.
will love it.
It's wonderful.
I'm falling in love with Jim Harbaugh right now.
It's great, and
The cycle continues.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you in about
3 years?
2 to 3
Yeah.
years.
I will be brief here.
This guy's the worst. Get him out of here.
I am hungry for more consistency from Kyler Murray. He has been
Okay.
His great has been great. QB1, QB4, QB6, QB7 on the week. His bad, it's been bad. QB30, QB24, QB25. And so the fantasy schizophrenia has been destructive to your weeks at times. I have been somebody that has him rostered in multiple leagues. 1 week I'm winning because of him. The next week I'm losing because of him. He has a good playoff schedule. Kyler has, like, the Cardinals in general have a good schedule rest of season. And you have to look at the details here. One of the awfully bad games that I named, no Harrison. One of the awfully bad games, no McBride. He needs, I think we've seen this as Cardinal fans analyzing this team, is that he needs every piece that's in that offense to succeed. Every core piece. If you don't have Harrison, all of a sudden your wide receivers are Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch. It disappears.
It's terrible.
If you don't have McBride, suddenly we double team Harrison and it's over, right? So he needs every piece or it falls apart, but the schedule is lining up very well for him. He runs. That is a fundamental baseline for quarterbacks. 2 touchdowns on the ground this last week. But again, this is hungry for more. This is not saying Kyler's a guaranteed league winner. This is saying I am hungry for more of this consistency and this offense to do what it's been doing over the last 3 weeks in moving the football. So
I mean, his schedule has to be in today's show, right?
It is.
Because it's not just – I won't go over the playoff weeks, but, yeah, he's on the bye week this week. The Cardinals are taking the old rest, but then Seattle, Minnesota, Seattle, Patriots. Or I ran into the playoffs. Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry.
Don't tell anybody who they play.
It's a wild run coming up here for Kyler and the Cardinals.
No, I had traded with you, Mike, for Jordan Love in our league of record.
Yep.
Because I had been so frustrated with the down weeks from Kyler. And I just kind of realized, like, I can't let Kyler go. I need to play these guys off the good and bad weeks back and forth in terms of the matchups. Like, you mentioned Seattle out of the bye. Like, I'm sitting Jordan Love that week, and I'm playing Kyler Murray that week.
Gotcha.
Because the matchups are just – some of these are too juicy. All right, that was Hungry for More, presented by Uber Eats, where you can get the best deals on game day food all season long. Uber Eats, the official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Let's jump into the news.
News and notes from around the league, presented by USAA Insurance.
49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan said George Kittle left Sunday's game with, quote, hamstring irritation that will be monitored through the week. Not exciting to hear that.
Not unless you got Christian McCaffrey.
Well, or Pearsall or Jennings.
TJ Hockenson. I mean, there's so many ways.
What is happening out here?
Look, I'm just saying this is a worry. If your opponent is going
that's
down,
a big worry.
Build yourself up to go up. I mean,
it sounds to me like you are heading to a title if you have Hockenson. Why would you ever move that guy?
I could be.
Aaron Wilson said the expectation is for Nico Collins to practice all week and then make his return Monday night against the Cowboys. Which brings us to disclosing the trade that happened in League of Record, because everybody right now on X or contacting Jason.
What?
Yeah.
Mediocre signing of the week.
You know what? I think maybe my pinky hit something.
You think?
I think that's that's in the corner there. Let's go to our mediocre signing of the week here.
The mediocre signing of the week is that the Raiders are expected to make the change to Desmond Ridder at quarterback.
No, they're not. No, they're not. That's real?
That is, according to the
That's not a
Athletics of
gag?
Victor. No, I mean
This isn't April 1st?
That's the mediocre signing of the week. The brilliant stroke of button pushing, Andy.
Yeah, well, I just setting you up for the news I didn't know about. That is.
I will not.
How can we do this?
I will not tolerate any toxic groupthink
against
Desmond Ridder in this podcast.
Okay, so can we make – okay, so Miami's defense, Denver's defense, Kansas City's defense, Tampa Bay's defense, Atlanta's defense, Jacksonville, New Orleans, and the Chargers. You would like those for the next 7 weeks.
Oh, I mean, Ridder's not going to make it 7 weeks. But, yeah, for the next couple.
If you're Desmond Ridder and you've been cut from multiple teams and you end up falling bass backwards into this starting opportunity.
It's your moment, man. Seize it.
All right, let's go back to Nico. Right now, any Nico-related news, Jason is getting tagged, and it's important that the world knows.
That tag needs to move to Andy. So our situation in the League of Record, we're on our trade deadline if you haven't figured that out yet. Week 11.
We've talked a lot about CeeDee Lamb and whether you make a move. I've been tagged a lot. Are you sticking with it? Are you riding it out?
And with
the answer's maybe.
Yeah, all of my injuries, I am on the outside. It would be a struggle to get over the top against some of the better teams in the League of Record, so I'm having to choose to trade or sell now. And so I traded Nico Collins for a pick swap in my favor and CeeDee Lamb to play. It's a hedge bet. CeeDee can be okay this year, but more it's a play for next year where Nico could easily be ahead of CeeDee Lamb in startup drafts next year. If I had to put $1 on him right now, I think CeeDee will be ahead of Nico coming into next year. They obviously have a brand-new contract for CeeDee, brand-new contract for Dak. So I think next year CeeDee will be ahead, but it's a risk. Nico was the number one wide receiver
also
before
a
he got
brand-new contract for him.
Yeah.
The move for me, just so I can help the fantasy community with this, is I was not going to force it with CeeDee Lamb, but I was looking. Here's what I wasn't going to do. I wasn't going to go neutral. Because CeeDee Lamb, I think, if you're in a keeper league, obviously you want to hang on to him. I turned down Puka Nacua for CeeDee Lamb. Maybe that's a bad move, but Puka Nacua has the single worst wide receiver schedule rest of season in terms of schedule adjusted fantasy points against. that was too neutral for me. It could be the right move, but it was too neutral. I turned down Jaden Reed and a pick, right? Like that was I don't need to trade maybe some inconsistency with CeeDee Lamb with definitely some inconsistency with Jaden Reed. I was looking at Malik Neighbors, but you're messing with quarterback problems in the same exact vein, right? Drew Lock does not inspire me any more than the Cooper Rush, Trey Lance situation. So I wasn't going to go neutral. Nico, to me, was an opportunity to potentially upgrade CeeDee Lamb without a quarterback, without Dak. So that was the move. And everyone's got to make that choice, and it also depends on how crucial CeeDee Lamb's high-end output was to your fantasy team. Do you have other players that are giving you high-end fantasy production? Because CeeDee Lamb's going to be good for 10 points on most weeks, I believe. Now, Mike, you like the move for me because you feel like you said 99% chance in your mind that Nico outperforms CeeDee rest of the season.
Yeah, and I was just being courteous to Jason's absolutely ridiculous trade that he made.
Oh,
okay.
I 100% agree. I mean, CeeDee Lamb should not be as good as Nico rest of season. No chance. This was a move for next year for me.
And, yeah, Al, you offered me some combo of Devontae Adams and Sutton and Mooney, and I said, no, thank you.
Nico Collins, guys, has not been in a football game since week 5, where he played 13% of the snaps. So he basically has not played since week 4. He is currently the wide receiver 17.
Yeah, like I said, he was the wide receiver 1 when he went down to injury. He was, he's better than everyone.
And now here's the real news is that now that he's not on Jason's team, those of you with Nico can relax.
Yeah, seriously.
Because moments after he traded him to me, we got the news that he's going to practice all week and he's going to play on Monday, and we've got him out of your clutches.
Yeah, I'd be afraid if you got CeeDee. That shoulder injury about to put him down.
All right, Trevor Lawrence ruled out already, but might come back after the bye. He needs to come back if you have Brian Thomas. That is the number one reason I want Trevor Lawrence active in the NFL right now, is to give Brian Thomas Jr. a chance. Because if he's not back, Brian Thomas Jr. went from up-and-coming star to terror to start him to me.
So he's out this week, then the bye week, then
oh
comes...
my gosh.
Breaking news.
No! No way!
Well, there's a lot of quarterback moves being made out there in the
What is
NFL.
happening?
The Colts are making another quarterback move. They are promoting second-string quarterback Anthony Richardson back to being the starter.
Did they look at Bryce Young and go, it kind of worked for Bryce Young?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the path.
He just said
No?
that Flacco was the starter until
he said otherwise,
I told
and
you,
he said otherwise.
He is in an awful position where he can't say anything else, and they were in the playoff hunt. Richardson was not getting it done. Joe Flacco has officially pumpkined. The Father Time seems to have caught Joe Flacco finally.
they said for the rest of the season.
Wow.
I don't know why you'd say that. You should
Just stop talking.
Yeah,
Stop talking.
I want to be on record here. I think Shane Steichen is a very good offensive mind. I really do think that he runs a good system, and with the right player personnel can get the most out of them. This isn't someone that I think was built on the laurels of Peyton Manning like an Adam Gase. But with his current head coaching prowess of the leadership structure of I'm brave enough to make a move. No, I'm not. Undo. No, both were forever.
Arthur Blank.
Yeah, I mean.
Arthur Smith.
Oh, yeah. It's I don't know. Maybe Steichen will be a great offensive coordinator.
He seems a little in over his head right now. I mean, this
That's
is
comical. That's comical.
I coughed the wrong name at first, but Arthur Smith with the Ritter and the rotation at court, it reminds me of that last year. Like, here's the truth, and maybe this lets you forgive Shane Steichen for his somewhat strange behavior. Neither quarterback's good enough to get you to the playoffs.
I agree.
That's the truth. The truth is you don't have him.
You had to find out with Flacco, like the run that he went on last year. You have to see did he have that magic left. At least right now, that magic
he does not.
No, the magic is gone. Richardson is back, and well, good luck with your Colts wide receivers.
Do you guys realize what this means for my dynasty team? I have Kyler and Baker on bye, and I had Flacco as my last quarterback.
Oh, nice. But didn't you also trade for Josh Downs?
Yeah, he certainly did.
Oh, goodbye. Yeah, I wish I traded him yesterday.
Can I ask you a question for a friend?
Sure.
Cooper Rush or Mac Jones?
Ooh.
Mac Jones. In a vacuum, I don't remember their schedules off the top of my head.
Well, and Cooper Rush is Monday night. Tell you that much. Against the Houston Texans.
Cooper Rush against Houston or Mac Jones
against Minnesota.
against Detroit.
I'd stick with Mac Jones. You're not going to be happy either way.
I'd stick with the poison you already got. Wow, what a news segment.
Yeah.
We got to take a break because we got more news to talk about. Did you want to add something, Mike?
It's just we have more quarterback news.
Oh boy, back in a minute. All right. On the other side of the break, I do want to ask you, do you think this is the right move with Richardson at this point?
Yes.
I kind of feel that way.
Based on what we saw from Flacco, like when Flacco came in and looked like he moved this offense, it was great. I understand making the move to Flacco. What we've seen since he was announced as the full-time starter and given the opportunity to truly lead this team, I mean, he was abysmal. It was weird, too. It was like he wasn't letting go of the ball when he always has. He just was holding on to it, getting sacks. I think at this point, if you're not going to make the playoffs, let the young guy in.
The crazy thing is that, I mean, he still threw for 272 yards last week. Adonai Mitchell, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs all had okay games. All of a sudden, that's off the table now, it seems, with Anthony Richardson. Not that you can't start Downs. It's just like Adonai Mitchell, like I'm going to go delete my waiver claim for him.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Adonai Mitchell and Alec Pierce, I think those are still the types of players you can throw in a lineup and hope for a 50, 60-yard bomb from Anthony Richardson. They're boom bust, but you don't expect a lot of passing yards. Anthony Richardson is never going to throw for 300 yards this season.
And they're playing the Jets this week. Is that right?
Correct.
Mike, what's the other the news we got? We got Desmond Ridder starting. We got Richardson starting.
Yeah.
What else we got?
So appearing on a radio segment, Adam Schefter said, quote, "I would guess that we don't see Daniel Jones play another down for the Giants." Schefter didn't bother to source the fantasy footballers. I understand that we were
this was us?
Yeah, we were talking about it yesterday. Because it is the clear and obvious decision that the Giants have to make. You can't risk Daniel Jones getting hurt and then owing him a bunch of money if he can't clear a physical.
Yeah, and Daniel Jones shaved his beard. So at that point, you are Drew Lock. Drew Lock is Daniel Jones without a beard. So
is
there's
Drew
no
Lock growing
difference
a beard?
Here. He should. He really, really should, but I don't know if he can yet. So
you ever Googled Drew Lock face before?
He's got some really good
Yeah,
face
he
pictures.
needs a beard. I'm looking at this
you
guy.
You put a beard on that man, he could look better.
He needs a beard.
Yeah. But yeah, so I don't think this makes a huge impact. I mean, you could play Daniel Jones for the rushing upside. You can't play Drew Lock. I presume that this will be pretty neutral for Malik Washington.
Malik
Neighbors. I don't think this is a upgrade.
Definitely neutral for Malik Washington.
Yes. This move
doesn't seem to be impacted
not
at all.
impact Malik Washington.
Who was the player that always came? How does this affect? Oh, who's
Marlon Mack.
Oh,
Marlon Mack. Yeah. Also neutral.
Yeah. So, I don't know if people are going to freak out and feel like Neighbors is dead. Neighbors hasn't been doing anything the last few weeks with Daniel Jones anyways.
I think if anything, you're like, oh,
maybe
there's
some
hope
it's
now.
a maybe.
And that's where I say it's neutral because I doubt it gets much worse, and I doubt it gets any better.
The Giants are in trouble. For what it's worth, in the 2 games that Drew Lock started last year, completion percentage 71% and 67%, threw for 269 yards, 208 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, took 6 sacks. It's not Daniel Jones. Adam Thielen coming back off of injured reserve. He found his way off, Mike.
They are on bye.
No.
But we will need to make a note to
Not again.
Why did you wake me?
From my slumber.
The next week waiver wire episode, if you're needing a start, Adam Thielen with Deontay Johnson out, and having enough time to recover, he's a sneaky guy that you could pick up off of waivers and play. But
I agree.
Out as in traded away, not just hurt.
Correct.
Yeah. Najee Harris could be limited in practice due to an ankle injury, expected to play on Sunday. Isaiah Likely not seen practicing, missed last Thursday's game. I believe Andrews has 4 of 5 weeks in double digits right now.
Mark Andrews is producing.
5 touchdowns in 5 weeks. So
yeah, he's been on a heater.
that was today's news and notes presented by USAA Insurance. Learn more at usaa.com/insurance. We'll preview the Thursday night game and get into that very important playoff primer.
Thursday Night Breakdown.
Well, okay. Washington 7-3, Philly 7-2.
I'm concerned.
The DK Sportsbook line, Philly -3.5. The over/under is 48.5. This is a divisional battle, and your concern, Mike, I am guessing, is that Philly will smash them.
No.
Okay.
I'm guessing that your concern is that Philly's defense.
I'm concerned about both defenses.
For fantasy.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, last year this was a barn burner. These 2 games with Sam Howell were awesome. They were, R.I.P.
Yeah.
But
No.
this Eagles defense, we've been saying it for a couple weeks now, and I think everyone's caught up. They're great. They're really, really tough to play against. Right now, you adjust for schedule. They are literally top 5. They're the only defense in the league that is top 5 against all positions of fantasy points given up to quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Last year, we were targeting the Eagles' secondary.
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, they were not good. So Cooper DeJean has made a big difference for this team. I believe that the actual defensive coordinator upgrade is massive. And then the Commanders' defense has gotten a little bit better every week.
They are. I mean, he's the Commanders are 8th against quarterbacks over the last 6 weeks, 4th against wideouts, and this week they add Marshawn Lattimore to the equation. So, yeah, you might not get the 34-31, the 38-31 games you got from last year, both up over 60 points. The over-under is at 48.5. I mean, you do have
nice.
You've got
hope and
talent
optimism
on both sides, but you're saying that the range of outcomes in this game go from, hey, we have the explosive game with the big performances, but it could also be, Thursday night, it's tough for teams to turn around and play on Thursday night, especially if you're recovering from injuries or you get banged up. Execution seems to hit a lull sometimes on Thursday night football, and you've got 2 divisional battles in and of themselves can turn that direction.
They can always go crazy. As in, like, just nothing happens. It's not, it's not affecting who I'm starting. Jaden, he's in. Jalen Hurts is in. Of course, Saquon. I mean, like, everybody on the Philadelphia side is in except for, Dallas Goedert he played? I think he caught it.
He scored.
Yeah, he scored, but he was also limited. 63% of the snaps. There was only 3 targets for him, and then he was limited for Tuesday's practice. He concerns me. That's the only spot that over the past 6 weeks the Commanders have been a plus matchup for a position. So again,
I'm certainly not playing Dallas Goedert.
Yeah.
Dallas Goedert, that might be where you can kind of attack the defense, but it would, his breakout games were when Devontae Smith got injured, A.J. Brown was out, and it was like, okay, it was clear how this was going to work out. I don't think Goddard has a lot of big fantasy games when the wide receivers are there.
So what about Brian Robinson, who has been missing time due to injury?
His injury situation is very frustrating for fantasy players because it's in, out, snip, snap. And Eckler performs when he's not there.
The hamstring injury has kept him out the past 2 weeks. Being on a short week, a limited participant in Tuesday's practice, I'm not playing him. I worry about re-aggravation. I worry about bad performance against, the number 3 run defense against running backs. So with the injury, he's out. If he's in, then I'm not going to play Austin Eckler either. So this is one of those situations where if you want a running back to play, you're hoping Brian Robinson is out, and then you can have Austin Eckler in kind of that flex caliber player. But, of course, don't put Thursday night football players in your flex. Give yourself that flexibility for later in the week.
Terry McLaurin, you're just going to start him
because
he's been so good?
You have to. I mean, you're going to start all these guys. And really it's one of those things where when I see primetime games, usually I view primetime games as great quarterbacks come through. And I think you've got two great quarterbacks here. So hopefully they can overcome these tough defenses. But, yeah, the range could be I mean, I don't think we're getting the Lamar Burrow
I don't think so
week.
either.
I mean, those two defenses, their secondaries are not good, and the quarterbacks took advantage. Right now, I expect, if I had to put $1 on the over-under, I'd probably put it on the under.
Who do you have to win the game?
I've got the Eagles.
Mike?
Yeah, I'll take the Eagles.
Yeah, it seems like the right bet. All right, let's jump in.
Playoff Primer.
Well, just to remind you some more names from last year that got you 2 title games that won you your league. Joe Flacco was one of those names. You could start him down the stretch.
Maybe it'll be Drew Lock.
Kyron Williams, James Conner, and the way Conner is so weird this year because, well, we'll talk about him.
Yeah, Conner every year.
But he normally finishes years strong, and this year's just been
it's tough
it's
because
all the way through.
In order for him to finish this year strong, he has to finish this year.
He has to play the whole year.
And that's never happened. So
But he also broke his rushing record last year. Like, he is the Fred Jackson of this generation right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, he has for 2 years in a row been a championship league winner.
You remember when Amari Cooper last year gave me 46 points against the guy in the middle,
yeah.
the bald guy in the middle of Deucer's Alley?
That was fun for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Did you feel every one of the 46 points, Papa Josh?
Dude, that was the worst.
He pooped on you. George Pickens also won people some titles last year.
Gonna do it again.
And David Njoku, we mentioned it. So we are looking at the best and worst schedules for every position. Let's start at quarterback.
We are, just for a point of clarification, we are using schedule-adjusted metrics. That doesn't mean, if it's not the team that has given up the most points to the quarterback position or whatever position. It's that we take a look at their opponents and what their opponents average and how much they have given up compared to their average and then rank those. We think it's a much more accurate schedule, and we're looking at the fantasy playoffs from week 15 through 17. If you're in a big, larger league that starts early in week 14, sorry, there's bye weeks in 14.
That's what I heard.
Or if you go all the way to the final week of the season, which is dumb, change your league, that'll be 18. But all of the metrics we're bringing up on today's episode are 15 through 17.
You want to join a big logger league with me, Mike?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, we're in. Here's the quarterback schedules that I think are really interesting. One is Baker Mayfield, because he has been very, very good and will be getting Mike Evans back. And that is really, really a big deal with what they found from Cade Otton. Like, yes, you've missed Godwin, but you have discovered something with Cade Otton, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And this team gets Evans back. They play the Chargers, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Carolina Panthers for your 3 playoff weeks.
All 3 of those are plus matchups for the quarterback position. You also have him, on bye right now where he gets to heal up his little toe ski that's been bothering him. So him getting a little healthier, getting Mike Evans back, I do think the stretch run, if you can acquire him for cheap, he will be a valuable option if you don't have one of the studs. And it's important that we make sure to not tell people when we say Baker's got a great schedule. I think he is worthy of winning a championship for sure. But that doesn't mean that someone who's got, we're going to talk about the bad schedules too. Josh Allen has a bad schedule for the playoffs. I'm not going to trade Josh Allen for Baker Mayfield. I'm going to roll with the absolute studs. But we're gonna get into it. But context here,
And just
use your brain.
Yeah. And the Buccaneers are on the bye week, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, if your quarterback situation is kind of in flux, drop it like it's hot, man. Look at that. Like, coming off of the bad week last week, I think that there's a chance that Baker hits some waivers. So keep an eye out. Oh, I'm sorry, laser.
Bo Nix, Kyler Murray, Jordan Love are the 3 other names to highlight from our schedule-adjusted strength of schedule for those playoff weeks. Bo Nix has been – what I love about him is he has freedom in this Peyton offense to move around and find guys downfield. And it's – in today's NFL, it's getting a little irritating to find guys that throw the ball down the field. I mean, we literally are having this discussion
Come on, Mahomes.
about Patrick Mahomes or Tua Tagovailoa in recent weeks, whereas Bo Nix has been given freedom to escape the pocket. He looks a lot like – it's wild to say this. He looks a little bit like Stroud did last year. Stroud would escape the pocket with his eyes downfield and chuck it, and you want that.
Except Bo Nix actually takes off and runs sometimes, and when he does, he gets chunk yardage.
Yeah, and Stroud probably completed more of the downfield passes.
Fair.
But Bo Nix, just pay attention. It's not that – that would be terrifying to me, to go into the playoffs with Bo Nix as your starter for 3 weeks.
Well,
but it doesn't mean you can't win.
You have some weeks here to get that actual confidence.
Kyler Murray plays at home against New England.
He's been awesome at home. He had one dud, but they dominated the game and beat the Bears at home. The Cardinals.
Oh, the rushing touchdowns.
The Cardinals as a team have been playing excellent at home, which if you aren't familiar over the last several years, they have sucked at home. So this is a nice change.
And then at Carolina, one of the worst teams against quarterbacks. Then at Los Angeles, controlled environment. You should pay attention to the weather at this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
But the Rams, there's the potential for that to be a back-and-forth affair, and they're a plus matchup. So Kyler and then Jordan Love at Seattle.
This is the guy that I think is going to win the most championships based on schedule and health of the team and all of that. At Seattle, which should be a very good back-and-forth affair. New Orleans in a controlled environment. Minnesota in a controlled environment. I really do think Jordan Love's – I mean, over those 3 weeks, I mean, you could see him throw 10 touchdowns easy.
Mike, talk to us about some of the worst quarterback schedules that people need to be aware of if you're planning on kind of riding one quarterback.
So Jason mentioned it, but Josh Allen, it's pretty tough, but he is – of the guys we're going to talk about, it's fine. I'll just play Josh Allen. But Jared Goff has not performed as we hoped he would for fantasy, nowhere close to what he was giving us last year. He's got 3 brutal matchups, Buffalo, Chicago, and San Francisco.
Not winning titles this year.
The one that I think is needs to be talked about and examined of just where we are, because Joe Burrow is playing unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Burrow is playing MVP caliber football right now. He's just crushing for fantasy football. Week 1 of the playoffs for him is on the road at Tennessee. It's an okay matchup, but that the Titans defense does show up.
Yeah, they're very good
from time to time. But then Cleveland and Denver. The Denver Broncos, it is at home, but it's the Denver Broncos in championship week. That is going to be a very tough decision for people that, I mean, look, if you've been rolling with the Bengals, you don't like to see that the team that just held the surging Kansas City Chiefs. It looked like Mahomes was back. He was not back in that game against the Denver Broncos.
Jason, other names that are worth surfacing there?
I certainly echo Burrow. My fears of him are large. That week 2 against Cleveland, last year against Cleveland, 181-2. The year prior, 82 yards and no touchdowns. It scares me. And he's playing so good where he's one of those guys where maybe if you've got someone else, maybe you could trade him for Kyler Plus or just something like that. I would entertain it. But Sam Darnold is the name to me that people have done well with Darnold so far this season.
Not recently.
And yeah, I mean, recently it's gotten a little bit worse, but Chicago in the first week of the playoffs, I don't think you get to the second week of the playoffs if you're playing Sam Darnold. So that's my issue is, some of these guys I look more towards the first and maybe second week of the playoffs to just be like, again, just like you got to make the playoffs to get there. It doesn't matter how great your championship matchup is. If you don't get there, worry more about, week 15. To me.
You did mention you're not going to bench Josh Allen to go play Baker Mayfield or go trade for Baker Mayfield. Are you willing to move Allen with the knowledge of these matchups for the guy that Jordan Love, if it means you're going to add to your team?
I would only do that. Only do that in the situation where I'm adding a lot to my team. If it's Jordan Love plus a really impactful, high-end running back, okay, now I'm willing to take that on, or Kyler plus a really impactful asset. Okay, but I would not move from Josh Allen to Kyler or Jordan Love. And then you've got guys like Goff, Geno Smith, and Patrick Mahomes who bad playoff schedules don't play them. But
yeah, it makes sense. If you look at running backs now, the juiciest schedules are some of these guys that have already gotten you to this point, which is kind of nice, right? Gibbs, Montgomery, they face the 31st, 22nd, and 18th best running defenses, all plus matchups. Kyron, all plus matchups. And then you talk about focusing on the first 2 weeks. It doesn't get better than James Conner's. New England at home, where Conner's been great. Carolina on the road, dead last against the run.
The only team that I think might compete with that is Bijan Robinson and the Falcons. The first 2 weeks you've got against the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 28th. I mean, that's
starting Desmond Ridder.
That's a great matchup for Bijan. And then the next week is the New York Giants. And while the Giants defense, they've got a great front. Right now, they're still 25th at schedule adjusted against running backs. But I do expect they might, towards the end of the season, start letting some of their players get healthy. You know what I mean? Start letting little tiny tweaks in the hamstring be like, "Did you feel that? No, I'm fine. You felt that. You are going. You sit it down. We got a draft pick to achieve." So I love Bijan's and James Conner's schedules and the Lions, man.
Well,
those are great.
You need to pick up Benson and Algier if you have Bijan and Conner, because you are promising yourself that schedule. That's what's beautiful about this juncture of the season in trading for an insurance back.
Yeah. We've talked about it I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, the stretch run for the Jets run game. Breece Hall, I don't trust him, but he's got a great schedule for the matchups. He's got Jacksonville and Buffalo in those 3 playoff weeks. If he is I'm just so scarred by Breece Hall.
I'm going to say you're talking with a different cadence. There's less air in your lungs when you speak of him right now.
Last year in our dynasty league, I believe I had a playoff week where Breece Hall and Bijan combined for 4 fantasy points. And when it happens,
did you end up winning?
I did not end up winning that week, but thankfully they did bounce back to an awesome game the next week when it didn't matter and I wasn't in. So I don't know. I'm sick of Breece Hall.
Gun shy.
Yeah, it's just personal.
Pretty nice schedule for Saquon, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs, who I feel like Jacobs is just sailing through the season, kind of like not making headlines, not a bust alert, but just cruising through the year.
That's because he hasn't had touchdowns. I mean, he has had 3 touchdowns on the course of the season, 4 if you include the receiving game.
So running backs that have terrible schedules for the playoffs, they're actually names that are not in the auto start category, at least several of them. So like Najee Harris and Jalen Warren have a terrible run. DeAndre Swift, terrible first 2 games, maybe the worst, Minnesota, Detroit. And not a lot of confidence in Swift being a special player able to overcome that. And then people expecting and excited for Isaiah Pacheco's return has to face Cleveland and Houston. Cleveland on the road, Houston then at home. That seems concerning where all 3 of those guys are in the –
Yeah, I mean, Kareem Hunt's done, and Isaiah Pacheco's not someone you're going to want to start. Kareem Hunt is going to continue to get you towards the playoffs, but you have to have a backup plan. And that backup plan is not going to be Isaiah Pacheco, because I do not believe for 1 second, like I was kind of pounding the table, that when Christian McCaffrey comes back, he's just going to get it all, because that's Kyle Shanahan's system. When Isaiah Pacheco comes back, he is not getting it all. This is a player coming back off of a broken leg that they want for the playoffs. Kareem Hunt has been more than serviceable. They're going to bring Isaiah Pacheco back, have it be a rotation. I don't doubt that Isaiah Pacheco takes over in the playoffs, but not your fantasy playoffs. So I do think if you're riding hot with Kareem Hunt, make plans. Find other, even if it's those insurance backs that we were just mentioning, grab Cam Akers, Tyler Algier, Trey Benson, Braylon Allen, and hope that by the time the playoffs come, one of those guys is a starter.
Mike, talk to me about the Dolphins situation, because Mostert suddenly doesn't get a carry. The schedule's tough. Houston, San Francisco, Cleveland. Achan's the guy, but Jalen Wright's being worked in, and the offense doesn't look normal. Is their schedule, their playoff schedule, enough to get you?
It's not. No,
attempting to pivot Achan at all.
I'm not going to move off of Achan. Pass catching running backs.
That's it. Yeah.
I'm not as concerned. And while it was only 15 yards this past week for Achan, he caught all 5 targets, and they just they have some time here over the next couple of weeks to figure it out before I would have any kind of concern for him. Where are you at with Joe Mixon, though? Week one is Miami. That's fine, but
I'm fine.
You're fine?
I'm fine. He's
on the road against Kansas City.
They're the number one.
In the semis.
They are. I mean, that is the literal worst matchup you can have. And I do not expect Joe Mixon to win you your week. I do fully expect Joe Mixon to be near 10 fantasy points and be fine. I mean, he's not someone I'm moving off of at all. He's just so integral to that team. I mean, we just saw him in a tough matchup where he got 25 carries, did nothing with it. He didn't get 50 yards, if my memory serves. I mean, if that's the case and they're still giving him that 25th carry, I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, he's still at a top 10 week.
Tyrone Tracy, okay, that's someone that I would be scared of. Bad schedule coming up, not a lot of investment. Team's going to be phoning it in. Hard. Baltimore, Atlanta, 2 tough matchups to start. But no, Joe Mixon, no, I'm not scared.
All right.
Well, let's take a break. We'll get into wide receivers and tight end schedules. The tight ends in particular, big role last year in winning you titles. We'll be right back. Well, there are some really juicy wide receiver schedules when you talk about the playoff weeks. It's hard not to look at Calvin Ridley right now and
I agree
and say, well, did it just take a few weeks, a trade of Hopkins? It makes sense that it would. Just joining this team Levis has been hurt. But Calvin Ridley's schedule is amazing. Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Jacksonville.
Outside of Baltimore, maybe Minnesota, I can't think of 3 matchups that I would – and they're all 3. I mean, Cincinnati is going to score points on you, and they don't have a good secondary. Jacksonville and Indianapolis, their defenses are so bad. Calvin Ridley, I know he got off to a really hard start, but he should have a great stretch run. He's been good every single week without Hopkins. I would be buying in. I would be buying in for the stretch run.
Since the bye week, he is receiving a 32% target share, and that includes a 39% target share this first week of Will Levis back. We had of course, you should have a little bit of concern when Mason Rudolph is unlocking Calvin Ridley, and then the
schedule for Levis is equally great. Just so you know, it's not just the wide receivers. Obviously, those are correlated, but Levis should be able to get some things done in this stretch.
Yeah, for Calvin Ridley.
For Calvin Ridley. Yes, to be clear. I just want it to be, it's not something that he has to overcome great quarterback defenses is what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay.
Malik Neighbors, that one's tough because you're probably just going to keep playing Malik Neighbors the rest of the season. It's Baltimore, Atlanta, Indianapolis. It's just what quarterback does he have?
I think you're just happy about it. You're just happy that I just brought up.
It's not actionable. You're just happy.
Tyrone Tracy has tough matchups. When running backs have tough matchups and last year for Dak and CeeDee, the reason we loved it wasn't just because they had good matchups, yay, but they had the specific matchups where you can't run against them. There are pass funnel defenses where you are forced to throw the ball on purpose, schematically, or based on the personnel across the field. Those are the best targets. That's why I love Baltimore. You're not running on Baltimore. Minnesota, you're not running on Minnesota very easily, either one of those. But you can pass the ball on them. So Malik Neighbors, you're going to start no matter what. So this is just good news. This is just like a cherry on top. Congratulations. You might have him back to, he might have the best bread of a sandwich season of all time. You know what I mean? Gets off that hot start the first 3 weeks.
It's a real brioche.
Brings you, an inside-out Oreo. Your fingers are going to be sticky, but it's a lot of delicious cream.
Have they done that yet?
I hope not.
You'd already nailed the analogy, and you jumped in on a new one. Just
unnecessary.
Keep laying it on.
Yeah, but now we got to talk to Nabisco.
Inside-out Oreos. I can't believe that hasn't happened.
I think there's a
or the Big Mac.
problem.
Have they done the Big Mac double stuff Oreo?
Oh, where there's an extra cookie in the middle?
Yeah, I mean, I just
I'm sure they've done that.
I feel like a Big Mac, because that's like a Quattro stuff, right?
Well, if it's a double stuff, it's a Quattro stuff, because you got 2 stuffs.
Yes.
That little cookie be checking in about 650 calories.
That little guy. Okay, so
how do they pack it all in there?
Talked about Neighbors, talked about Ridley. The Packers.
Yep.
Obviously,
Pairing
we
with
talked
Love.
about
Have they
pairing.
really not made a Big Mac style Oreo? I mean, Oreo's made like every style of
has
Mac.
McDonald's
Swedish
like
fish.
have they like patented anything
Oh,
made
extra
in the
bun?
same form
No one puts an extra cookie layer
in between? Jaden Reed, and then by extension, I would say if someone gets hurt in that wide receiver core, then you can move to the Dobbs, Wicks, Watson stuff.
Yeah,
I'm fine with Dobbs.
There will be players on waivers right now that win championships, and that could be Christian Watson. You know, he's stunk this year, but he is, I think, a talented athlete in a great offense with great matchups. Those types of players are worth picking up and stashing in hopes that they catch fire. Not every player can catch fire, but we know, we've seen Christian Watson catch fire for a month. Words are hard.
Oh man, you got me. You got me good. I was just taking a quick look at the waiver wire, and Audric Estime went for a sweet $36 of fab. That's a lot. That's a lot of cheddar.
It's a lot of cheese.
I also knew that yesterday, if I mentioned that I had a bid in on Tampa Bay, I would be sacrificing Tampa Bay. I knew it instantly, and I knew for a fact that Al Borland would go at that moment and place a bid, and I'm guessing that's what happened.
That is exactly what happened.
Yeah. So for those of you out there that think
Did I get him?
No, you didn't.
Oh, okay.
you didn't, but you outbid me by a lot, and I knew that you would, and I knew that by saying it on this show, I would be sacrificing Tampa Bay, and I did it for you, Foot Clan.
What a hero.
What a hero. Cortland Sutton has a great schedule, pairing with the Bo Nix schedule. Sutton could be a league winner. That is the name that sticks out as every year there's a few. Really? And that one, you know, Sutton's been playing so well.
Mm-hmm.
The last, 5 weeks, he has had 4 really good performances. He's on pace for almost 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns, 85 catches, 122 targets in that stretch. It's been really good for Cortland Sutton. Like, Cortland Sutton's having a number 7 overall week without a touchdown. That didn't happen before. And that happened 2 weeks ago. So, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, great first 2 weeks if you want to look at those. The Chiefs with Hopkins and eventually Juju because Xavier Worthy's not involved. And then Tyreek Hill, if he can get it going,
Yeah.
there's
a
a nice,
question.
there's a 3-week stretch that's okay.
Yeah, they got the sandwich.
Andy,
Yeah.
did you add Marquez Valdez-Scantling in the league of record on waivers?
Apparently.
I just want that public record. I want that known, and I want that shame to be felt. We can move on now.
I spent no fab.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Ironically, I had Adonai Mitchell ahead of him, but flip-flopped them with the Richardson news. So,
Don't worry, you got both.
Oh, I did?
Yeah.
Oh, I've
Congrats.
got to drop one though because I got to move Nico Collins. Okay. Let's talk about bad schedules for wide receivers and whether you'd move those players now. The panic in the streets for Josh Downs, Pittman, Adonai Mitchell, and company.
Yes.
I mean, the schedule was
Full
irrelevant. I was already panicking when the quarterback move got made, so no. I mean, you're not going to start those guys.
Brian Thomas Jr. seems like
Huge panic in the streets for me.
I mean, he already was panicking. The schedule's awful.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, to his absolute credit, will 100% play through hardcore injuries. This guy will be on the. He is not one of those players that wants to take plays off, take games off. That being said, they're not winning ball games, and they're not going to win ball games with Mac Jones, and rushing him back from a. It's unwise. He probably shouldn't come back. If he doesn't, Brian Thomas Jr. is toast. But even if he comes back, the Jets,
It's really tough.
that's your first entry into the playoffs. I don't like that.
Metcalf, tough schedule, not the end of the world.
No, I'm okay with.
We talked about Burrow, so obviously Jamar Chase. It's not lining up for Chase and Higgins as well as it could be, but you don't bench those guys.
No, you're just sad. I mean, the question is, do you look to, move any of those guys? Do you look to take someone like a Jamar Chase and try to get Nico plus something, or
And I mean, that's a good point. You could make that pivot, but I wouldn't with Chase.
No.
Kupp and Nakua, I said they have the worst schedule. Not just they don't just have a bad playoff schedule, which it is bad. At San Francisco, at New York, like 2 road games. Stafford traveling to play outdoors somewhere else at that time of year against top tier pass defenses is concerning. And then he goes to Arizona, but those first 2 weeks, it does concern me. It seems like I had 2 trains of thought when I thought about the Cooper Kupp or the Puka Nakua trade for CeeDee Lamb. That led me out of it. But one was just they'll be fine no matter what. Like these guys they're going to be fine because they're the only options. They can have good games when Stafford sucks. But knowing that it's the worst schedule, not just in the playoffs, but here on out. Like it's going to be – they've got to put it together in consecutive weeks here on out. That gave me hesitation. Do you care at all, Mike, about those matchups?
Personally, I don't. Just like the way that Puka is being targeted right now is – absolutely outrageous. I mean, maybe it concerns me a little bit for Cooper Kupp. He doesn't look like Cooper Kupp, at least to me. I mean, fantasy-wise, it's been fine. Wide receiver 9, wide receiver 20. But he despite playing the whole game, I don't know. He looks a little slow to me, so he needs to recover. But Puka, I'm not worried about at all.
Tight ends, Jason, you talked about Hockenson. But here's some comfort. McBride, an incredible schedule to end the year.
Get this man some touchdowns.
They keep trying, Mike. Every week they keep trying, and something goes wrong. They tried again. Every week they've gone to him. I think this might be the most open secret on the sideline of the Cardinals. Like they know that he doesn't have one.
Did you know that?
But it has to come naturally.
Trey McBride is the tight end 3. And is the tight end 3 in points per game. He is the tight end 3 in points per game.
He's been unbelievable.
And has 0 receiving touchdowns.
That's crazy. He does have 2 touchdowns on the season, 1 a fumble recovery, 1 a rushing attempt. But
that is absurd.
He's been great. The schedule is great. I brought up TJ Hockenson, but all 3 are incredibly good plus matchups for the tight end position specifically. I love Chicago. I hate playing wide receivers against them. They're going to need Hockenson as a perfect matchup in the sense that you've got your guys focused on Justin Jefferson. They're vulnerable at the tight end position. Then Seattle and Green Bay, who are worse than 25th against tight end. But pairing with Jordan Love and tight end, when you look at schedules and you're saying who's got a good one, who's got a bad one. When it comes to running backs and wide receivers, I don't overdo it. I don't. If you've got a great option, I don't care. It's like right now you might look at Cleveland and say, oh, they've got a bad secondary. They give up a lot of points to wide receivers. No, they don't. They give up a ton to Jamar Chase. Before that game, that's kind of screwing up a bunch of the metrics. Jamar Chase can be good against anyone. But with tight ends, there are literal schemes that's where you beat the team. And when you find those,
the defenses are willing to accept it.
They're either willing to accept it or they just don't happen to have the linebacker personnel to cover a tight end. And so if you're a good offensive mind, you go, oh, I'm going to exploit the matchup play. And it happens over and over and over. That's where Tucker Kraft, I think, is interesting for a playoff run. Same with David Njoku. Those 2 guys have really good entries into the fantasy playoffs.
Other names?
I mean, the only other name is Brock Bowers. Who,
you should probably play him.
You're going to play anyways, but it's like neighbors. You're just happy that you've got a good schedule.
Kelsey, Andrews, not picture perfect.
The Kelsey one, that's fine. I'll let that ride. The targets will be there. The Ravens and the Bills one, that's a little sketchier.
So Kincaid and Andrews?
Yeah, like the Bills one for sure. I think we're kind of as a show out on, is Dalton Kincaid going to be a difference maker? He's fine if you need a couple points at the tight end position, but what you were hoping for, I really don't think that's going to be there. And then Mark Andrews does the usage continue? Because if Mark Andrews is actually allowed to run his full allotment of routes, which it had been trending up, And then with Isaiah Likely out, it was, oh, holy crap, it's all Mark Andrews all the time. Does that go back down? Because if Mark Andrews is playing his allotment of snaps and routes, then I do not care about this schedule.
No, and he I don't believe he will. I think when Isaiah Likely comes back, you're going to see a player go back to, he was
But
playing.
I'm saying, but he was already on the rise, so it's like what is the truth about how many routes Mark Andrews will be running? I don't think we'll have that information for a while.
The touchdowns
I don't think
have been prolific right now.
Yeah.
He's averaging one a game.
And you don't need to bench Mark Andrews, because even if Isaiah Likely is back and you get a 50% snap rate, you can still get a touchdown with Andrews. That's fine. But I'm just saying I don't think you're going to see these good volume games that he's also been adding with Likely missing. So Mark Andrews is just a fine play. Dalton Kincaid is I will not play.
Defensive schedules, we've mentioned Cincinnati. They play Tennessee, Cleveland, Denver to end the year. Specifically, let's look at those first two. Those are kind of the best of the best. The Colts play Denver, Tennessee. I don't love them on the road at Denver, and I don't love the Colts defense. The Packers, there you go. Seattle, New Orleans, and the Packers, they're a good defense. Tampa Bay plays the Chargers in L.A. I don't think that's a great matchup, honestly. But then they play Dallas, Carolina.
Falcons. The Falcons are the team you need to pick up. You'll need someone else for championship week, because in championship week they play against the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, and that might not be good. But right now, their opening to the playoffs are the Las Vegas Raiders with who knows who at quarterback.
Right.
Ritter. Who cares?
They're
all
AFC
good
by then.
And then the New York Giants with who knows. Is Drew Lock the quarterback? Those are great entries into the playoffs.
I like it. I like the Cardinals. I like the Cardinals at home against New England. Cardinals right now are middle of the pack to just above in points against and in defensive performance. And then Carolina. I mean, maybe you pivot on the road against L.A., but they could be L.A. depending on their juncture of the season. Maybe not as much on the line. I like Arizona.
I like Arizona as well. I just don't think that they have as many playmakers. Like they're doing a very good job of team defense. But if I had to choose between the Cardinals and the Falcons, I'm going to take Matthew Judon and the chance of just real big defensive plays.
And then just combo with the Buccaneers. Not at this point, I'm not carrying two DSTs, but as you get closer to the playoffs, it's pretty common for my teams. I've got my insurance running backs, I've got the couple depth pieces I need, and then I'll roster the two DSTs, because if you can go through with you pair the Falcons and then championship week you throw the Bucs in against the Panthers at home, that seems like a good strat right now.
The Saints and Dolphins defenses specifically for championship week should be considered Las Vegas and Cleveland. So those are pairing defenses with maybe the Cardinals, maybe the Falcons. The Saints play
the Dolphins for sure.
Dolphins I'd be open to.
Well, the Saints play Las Vegas.
I know,
and they're at home.
You want to know the grossest thing?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at just championship week, the schedule adjusted. Who are the matchups to target, right? And then you look over and you go, well, okay, so who am I picking up? And you were hoping it's a good defense. The Dolphins, great. They are literally playing against the number one team to play against. But if you look down the list, the rest of them is the Saints, bad defense, Jaguars, bad defense, Colts, bad defense. So it's like, dadgummit.
Yeah.
The Chargers, you could pick up the Chargers. They're going to get the New England Patriots for championship week.
And then we're getting towards the end here, and I want to remind everybody that there will be an article that highlights all of the player primer information, and you'll see the charts on it. You can go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, to see it. But here are the teams I want to highlight really quickly on the bad side of the defenses, because you're probably riding these teams all the way to the playoffs. But you probably don't want to play the Lions or the Bills against the Lions and Bills, right? Like they're playing each other in week one of the playoffs.
Right.
That's risky. The Eagles have to face Pittsburgh and Washington. You might just ride that, but it's also slightly risky.
We'll learn a lot
Not
tomorrow.
good matchups. So keep those are the three, the Bills, Lions, and Eagles, that I think people will ride all the way into the playoffs, but then maybe needs to make sure they have a plan. And the Steelers might be in that category too, because they got to play Philadelphia in week one of the playoffs. That's concerning to me. So that's the teams that I care about on the bad side of it, because you're not trying to play a bad defense, but you might accidentally play a good defense in a really bad matchup.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one to pay attention to. So there you go. There'll be the article will be up on the website. If you want to look at the strength of schedule tool, we let you break it down by playoff weeks. We let you break it down by last 5, whatever sample size you want. That's part of the tools at jointhefoot.com. It's updated weekly. You get schedule adjusted or fantasy points against. We focused on schedule adjusted, but if you want to go look at the best performers and just sheer points against numbers, you can do that. And again, that's not only on the website at jointhefoot.com, but it's in our app, the Fantasy Footballers In-Season app, which you can find on iOS and Android. That'll do it for today's episode of the show. Starts of the week, matchups tomorrow, matchups on Friday, Wheel of Shame, and a whole lot more. We'll figure out what strange coaching decisions people make tomorrow morning on the show.
It's always a
That'll
good time.
That'll be fun.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.